Our special focus on the show this evening, well, artificial intelligence and the way forward. In a significant development, 3 countries, the US, UK plus the EU, in fact, has signed a global treaty on regulating artificial intelligence. This is the first legally binding treaty on artificial intelligence, and this comes amid, of course, a global understanding that we need to regulate artificial intelligence to mitigate perhaps the risks that artificial intelligence potentially poses, including, of course, the risks to data privacy and also to democracy, the rule of law. There are various complex ramifications that artificial intelligence can have. How do we really go forward in regulation, and can India really lead the way? Joining me on that is Ankush Sabharwal, founder and CEO of CoRover, also an AI and tech expert associated with the Government of India. Also with me, Dr. Subi Chaturvedi, a tech and policy expert, global SVP, also Chief Public Policy Officer of the InMobi Group. Thanks both very much for being with us this evening. Dr. Chaturvedi, going across to you first, how do you see this global treaty on AI? Why is it such a big deal, and how can it, in a sense, potentially lead the way for some sort of global regulation of artificial intelligence? Because we have seen the kind of risks AI can pose. I mean, look at the deepfake menace here in India as well. And now more than ever, we need a law on artificial intelligence.
So I've been a huge proponent of artificial intelligence, and I think it has tremendous potential to change the world, which is why we largely know of it as the biggest disruptor. The numbers are really important, and which is why we'll understand what is at stake today. About 46 countries have ratified it, and this includes 14 non-EU member countries as well. It's the first time that you have a legal framework, and it is a binding treaty that is binding across all countries. So it was very, very difficult until now, and a lot of pushback was happening from the private sector, from different global governments, to say that you cannot regulate, that is something still under development. In terms of numbers and perspectives, in 2022 we were clocking at about 118 billion US dollars. The total market size from 2023 to 2030 is going to be 2000 billion US dollars. There is no other sector that's growing at a compounded annual growth rate of about 38%. So what is at stake and what has really happened? India is not lagging. There has been equal seat at the table for India, which is why that's where the good news is. When the GPAI concluded earlier this year, India was the chair. For the last 2 years, we've been leading the work on fundamental principles, and that is why this is a welcome move, where looking at fundamental principles which align not just with technology. The conversation is very important and really significant because there's a very strong lens on human rights. There's a very strong lens on deepening democracy, on balancing both human as well as democratic principles. So we are really looking at about 8 pillars. They're bringing in technology to protect and uphold human dignity, individual autonomy, equality, non-discrimination, a respect for privacy and personal data protection, because that is really the heart of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of dependence on data.
So that's an important point to make. In fact, data privacy is something that is an extremely important aspect of the AI governance challenge, as it were.
But
right. Ankush Sabharwal, come in on this, because the points you were making about human rights in the virtual world, it's a fascinating conversation to have, and perhaps it hasn't really become drawing room conversations yet. But Ankush Sabharwal, what potentially are the risks of unregulated AI? Because we have seen that, if you look at some of the World Bank reports and the World Economic Forum reports, the risks that fake news poses are greater than perhaps even the risks of war and climate change, as per these reports. So, break it down for us. Potentially, what could be the risks of unregulated AI?
Yeah, I think in that case, we would be in no man's land, right? So we would not like to be in that area. If you see, I don't remember or know any area where AI is not being used or not being researched, right? So last week I've seen a big ad in Bangalore, 1MG Mall, the world's first AI mattress. So I think we should assume whether we know it or not, believe it or not, like it or not, every sector would now have AI. So I think there is no question of not having regulations. Yes, technologists like us, we might think, hey, that's little check on the innovation because now we have to be driven by the regulation. Why not? right? When the physical products can be regulated, so why not the AI systems? Because see, if you see the long term, this is actually going to help the society and even the technologists and the developers. Because we technologists, I'm taking wearing the technologist hat now, because we solve the problems, right? So someone should tell us what are the regulations, what are the laws, how to protect the probably human rights, and how do we make sure the AI is being responsibly developed and used. So if this work is being done by someone else, so I should focus on solving the problem by using the technology. So I think we would be in chaos, to answer your question, if we really think of non-regulated AI.
But is there legal enforceability? Dr. Chaturvedi, would you like to weigh in on that? Because a lot of the critics of this treaty have said that it isn't really legally enforceable. This is basically just a broad set of principles, about democracy, non-discrimination, the rule of law. But how do we legally enforce a treaty when it comes to artificial intelligence? There can be no punitive action, in that sense.
Yes, but the important point here is that unlike frameworks and conventions, so there are now about 6 safety institutes globally which were debating about responsible, inclusive AI in development. What this helps you do is it puts the onus on technology companies. InMobi is India's first unicorn. Glance, our second unicorn, is known globally all across the world as the first in application frameworks, right? When you are looking at frameworks and treaties such as these, what this calls for companies to do is look at greater emphasis on transparency and oversight. The question always has been that this is disruptive technology. How will law and policy play catch up? So
Yes.
this treaty, for the first time, if you're going to do business in these countries, asks for documenting relevant information. And I think that this is where it's a good thing, because otherwise governments do not know where and how much to regulate. So when the ask when it comes to artificial intelligence is, sometimes government might do an overreach and say, hey, show me your algorithm or your black box, which is protected IP. So this is where it's
that's an
doing
important
a good
point
job
you're
in
making.
setting a
Can
template.
policy play catch up? And I'm afraid I just have 1 minute left. Ankush, the last word to you. When it comes to India, we've always been on top of the game when it comes to digital public infrastructure and tech. But what are the challenges when it comes to
just
India?
the last point here, I just wanted 30 seconds to finish. The emphasis here is India's not playing catch up. India's been ahead of the game here and laid a lot of emphasis on reliability and
That's an
safe
important
innovation.
point. Ankush, quickly, 30 seconds.
Of course, I think India is leading. As we know, the first regulatory framework, the GPay, India was the chair last year, and now we are the support chair. And I'm sure we are all for regulations, and we as a society and technologists, we are ready to adhere to any regulation which India subscribes to.
All right. Thanks very much, Ankush and Subi, for being with us. As I said, it's a fascinating conversation to have, but a big step towards regulating artificial intelligence.